You know what? But if someone stumbles into this, they're going to be so excited by the production value. All right. Let's take a look at these patch notes. What do we got here? All right.
So
Peter.
we'll start at the top. I guess it's only the hero and unit balance changes, right? So yeah, for those who didn't know, Blizzard announced the upcoming patch 2 days ago, and already released it on the test server. So it'll probably going to hit the real servers with some changes in like a month or two, I guess. And while in the previous patch they focused on like the general infrastructure and hero balance, this time we also see several major unit changes, and I think it's going to be exciting to see how everything works out. So I guess it's cool if we find some time to discuss its impact on FFA, as I guess it's like it's something we can we have the expertise to talk about, and as Blizzard doesn't seem to care about FML and FFA scene too much when doing these changes, I think it's still good to have like an opinion on that.
Yeah, I'm really hoping. It looks like they're paying close to map feedback at least, and what the one thing I'm hoping is that we can get the pool ironed out with a couple more changes, and we'll talk about the map pool. I think it's the last section of this, but yeah, absolutely. This is the biggest change, and as long as I can remember, this is the biggest change to the balance of things ever. Almost every single major unit was changed. All of them. It basically is the goal is to shake up the meta from the solo things. It's going to have quite the same effect on FFA too. So I guess we should just kind of dive right into it.
Sure. Yeah, let's start.
All right. Well, Archmage is the first one to get hit with. So Water Elemental decreased across the board. That's obviously a huge change to solo. Not as big of a deal in FFA because the level 1, level 2 HP decrease isn't huge. I mean, it'll still be able to tank for creeping. And later on, usually people retrain to Blizzard anyway. So
I agree. Like, unless you're a human player and you have like a borderline creep route on a map like Sanctuary, where where it just fits with the water elemental HP and damage, you may need to change something. But apart from that, I don't think anyone will recognize the change.
Yeah, and the damage decrease is so minuscule; it really doesn't matter either. So I don't think it. Really, Brilliant Taurus, so level 1 stays the same. I think level 1 is 1 per second, and then there's a slight decrease for 2 and 3. So this isn't. I think this is big for in-fight regeneration. So like if you're fighting a Night Elf and they're mana burning you, you used to be able to just recover fast enough to it wouldn't negate mana burn or something like that, but it would keep you in the fight longer. Whereas it's still high enough that you can regenerate between, but I think it's not as effective in fights.
You mean the new like. So, and because I think it's one of the major changes in this patch affecting FFA a lot. I mean, although like mass casters are not a thing in FFA usually, but in Hero Arena, human heroes are known to never run out of mana, and I could imagine that with this nerf of the Brilliance Aura, they might run out of mana much quicker. I think it's difficult to tell with these like numeric changes, so you don't really know how. I mean, I don't know anyways because I don't play Archmage, but you don't really know how like a 10-15% decrease of regeneration really feels in game. So I mean, it might be still high, and I guess there are some other changes in this patch that we will see later on that may benefit from Brilliance Aura more than it was the case in the past.
Yeah.
And same like Mass Teleport, I think is mostly used in FFA, I guess. So it's like the mode for Mass Teleport, and I see it as a major change, but more of a fix. I don't think it doesn't really matter in the end, I guess, being an enemy of Mass versus Mass Teleport. If the area of effect was increased, it will just prevent units from being left behind because they were out of range. And I think it's, yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter for enemies too much unless you play against like a bad hero player who forgets his units all the time. But I think it's all right to increase the area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on with Brilliance, or I didn't even think about Hero Arena. So I think the two big places we'll see the Brilliance or effect come into play are, like you said, Hero Arena. Definitely, you could run out of mana now. No, you can't spam Thunderclap and Stormbolt at the same time. You have to actually think about it. And then the other one is combining a fight and then immediately mass TPing into the person's base to chase them. You might not have full mana at that point. So those are the two areas. And then I think we've all gotten a laugh out of someone forgetting a hero with mass TP because they were just out of range. So yeah, I agree. I think that getting it up to 800 is a good change. It's not really a buff so much as it's probably, I'm guessing 800 is the range for regular TPs, and I think having them be the same is a good change.
Yeah, I think regular might still be a bit more. Grubby said on stream yesterday that 800 would be like a cannon tower, while 700 would be a watchtower.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know, but I think it's all right. So I guess overall, I mean, I think this can be seen, like these Archmage changes can be seen as a nerf, because Brilliance Aura will affect human most. But yeah, I think in general it's common sense that, or it's not common sense, but it's consensus that human was weakened again by this patch.
Yep.
Especially, yeah,
especially in
certain
FFA.
matchups. Yeah, and yeah, FFA, I guess, but we will I guess we will draw final conclusions in the end. So let's see. And there's so many changes. I already forgot like half of them. So
good chance to review them, right?
Yeah. So Blade Master, again, another nerf that will annoy Orc players for sure. Reducing agility.
Yeah, I mean that's 2% slower attack plus two fewer damage to start off the game.
That's basically that's like slippers of agility that you find or don't find in the end. So I think it's quite a big deal for other game or for Zolo, but for FFA, I'm not sure if again one of these changes that will make a difference for sure, as Orc is very hero damage reliant. But on the other hand, I mean Orc heroes, or Blade Master in particular, comes into play when he's really pumped, and I'm not sure if 2 agility points will make a difference in the end. So we'll see.
Lich, Frost Armor, damage or reduced slow duration against all units to 4 seconds. So it doesn't have what it used to be. I feel like it used to be like 10 seconds. It was very long.
Grubby said 6, and some of his chat said 5 yesterday. So I guess it's just 1 second reduction.
Wow. Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's interesting. I remember when Lich first came out in Solo, that it was like a revelation. It's like nobody had ever thought to use Frost Armor before. In FFA, I don't know if this is that big of a change, because the only time I ever really see Frost Armor come out is against Bat Riders to reduce the damage, or in Hero Arena. And
I guess it won't matter. Like, this change won't matter too much, although I think Frost Armor is an important spell for Undead, especially in Hero Arena. But yeah, so the next one is definitely more like not the next one, the Demon Hunter agility reduction, I don't think it matters too much. But the Metamorphosis, however you pronounce it, the reduction.
Well, we'll call him Superman.
Superman.
I think that's I think they call him Superman. So
yeah,
the Superman, that's a pretty. I mean, it's 45 seconds is still very long, but what the cooldown is 180 seconds, I believe, and so.
I mean, when I saw it at first, I was okay. It will prevent someone like Trunks to, like, if he's the aggressor, it will prevent him from totally wreck down everything potentially, because 15 seconds is quite or 15 seconds less is quite a nerf.
25%.
Yeah, so I think it makes a difference for sure. But Trunks himself said it wouldn't matter too much, and I tend to agree to some extent, because he, like, usually everyone's dead like within the first 30 to 45 seconds anyways, or alive. What I'm a bit worried about are situations where, like, he could use it for his purpose to TP out earlier, because very often, like, the Demon Hunter, or you need to leave the fight already before the ultimate ends. So apparently, if the duration is not as long, the cooldown will start earlier. So you can start the fight earlier again than you would have with 60 seconds duration. So if you have a 3-minute cooldown and it just starts 15 seconds later that you TP, I think it could make a difference in a positive way also, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where it will really help is, let's say that you fight Trunks right outside of his base. He can't chase you back to your base now.
Yeah.
And if you fight him, or the other thing is, I always think when someone pops, you just TP away and then you fight them in a minute.
Yep.
In between the cooldowns. This will make it easier for you to avoid having to fight Metamorphosis, because it was just so long before. But I agree that it gives people the opportunity now to, I think, play a little bit more strategically if they want to. But yeah, I think Trunks is absolutely right. If you are in a situation where you're just fighting him, if he's sieging you, he's still going to kill you in 45 seconds. Or if you're attacking him, the fight will be over one way or the other in 45 seconds. So it's a good change. I think it's a bigger deal for small maps in solo. Like Echo Isles, you could chase someone all over the map in Metamorphosis. So that's good.
I agree. Yeah. So next change, Keeper of the Grove.
Man, they keep making them better. They keep making them better and better, man.
I mean, I guess with the previous changes, you still would have been hesitant to skill Force of Nature, and they want to push it as a first or at least second skill instead of Thorn's Aura. And I think it's becoming more and more viable. And I personally really like this change, because sometimes in, like, Hero Arena, where I like to reskill my Keeper to Treants, because I think they're super valuable for base race and to scout. It's you could run low on mana very quickly because 125 is a lot of mana if you don't pump his mana pool. So I really like this change, and I think it could make quite a difference. Like, for me personally, when playing him in Hero Arena, not like a huge difference, but I think it's more like it's making it a bit more easy to use it.
The only thing I'd like to see them change is the treants still move so slowly. Is either make them last 15 seconds longer or buff their move speed by 10, because surrounding with a treant is so difficult because they have huge collision size, and so they always bump into each other,
but
slowing themselves down.
They are not slower. Like with Force of Nature, are they really slower than water elementals? I believe they have the same speed.
Well, water elementals are slow too, though.
Yeah, I know, but I think it's right. So.
the only place that I think that I can find this is on the okay. So I think they'll have it on Treants move at well. So I don't know if this is still the so they move at 270. So like about the speed of the Lich when how slow the Lich used to move. So if you consider that like
170.
270, and then slow they move at 220. So if you compare that to like I don't know, an archer, actually an archer moves at 270, but archers are slow. Like Huntress is.
I mean, I'm fine with it. So the movement speed wouldn't it doesn't bother me too much. So I guess I will use it as I did before, but it's definitely nice, I think, and I hope to see him more in other game modes. And same with Alchemist, I guess.
This is going to be so the healing spray is not, I don't think, too big of a deal because I think most people use it between fights. They never use it in fight. But that transmute change is a huge deal. Going from 80% of the value to 1.25. So that means if you transmute a Chimera now, it's worth about 450.
Yeah.
So when you transmuted a Chimera before, you get about 270. Now you get 4.
Yeah.
And you figure they're losing 330 gold now as well. So that's an 800 gold swing.
Yeah.
And mid to late game, that's a lot of gold.
I agree. So it will definitely, you will definitely be able to hoard more gold late game if you have like 10 minutes time to transmute 5, 10, or even 15 units. It can bring you a few thousand gold quickly if you manage to do that. So I think it's quite a big deal. I think the heal spray, I mean, Alchemist in general was, I think, used way more than before in other game modes. I don't think the meta in FFA has changed too much since the recent, for neutral heroes since 1.29. I'm not sure if people just, because on paper, healing spray is like very good in air fights, for instance, for elf, but potentially also for other races. So I'm not sure if it was just because 1.29 was just released a few months ago and there wasn't enough time in between, but I could figure Alchemist to be a more viable hero in the future, despite being nerfed a bit on the heal spray side. And the transmute, as you said, is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Even more than it was before.
All right, what do we got next? We got Tinker. Ooh. Pocket Factory now has heavy armor instead of normal. That's interesting. Well, I mean, the base armor, obviously, that's what, 7%? That's a 7% HP reduction, which is kind of rough.
Yep. So I guess, I mean, if you want to focus down Pocket Factories in FFA, you will be able to do that pretty quickly, no matter what.
Yeah.
I feel, and I don't think it affects the damage dealt by heroes too much. So
so it won't affect hero damage. I think the big matchup it comes into effect is against humans. So that means that it's harder for breakers to kill Pocket Factories now.
Exactly.
But it's so much easier. Yeah. It's a lot easier for Griffins to kill them.
I agree. So for breakers, I think might be the units mostly affected by this. So it's easier to kill them with ranged, also with magic damage right now, but it's more difficult to do that with normal damage. So I think in general this doesn't change too much about the Tinker in general. I mean, he was super tanky before, especially once he reached level 6. So I guess it's fair to reduce the armor. Also, he's more quick now. He runs quicker now with the speed upgrade. So I think it's fair enough. I would have liked to see cluster rockets I would like to see a general fix of the cluster rockets, since it's on paper it's cool and an alternative to the passive skill, but it's too slow to really.
Yeah.
It's great against tanks, but that's it. So the stun is still like half a second or what, and
Yep.
you can hardly hit any air units, for instance, in air fights, because it just takes half a second to, like 1 second to really start. So
Yeah. I would like to see the maybe if they increase the range casting, or if so I think it's like 3 seconds of channeling to cast the entire thing with cluster rockets. I don't know if you've ever played Diablo 3, but in Diablo 3, the Demon Hunter has the ability to use Rain of Arrows, which is similar to cluster rockets. And there's like a 1 second channeling, and then it just auto casts on its own. So it would be cool to me if there was a 1 second channel to cast cluster rockets, but then they dropped for like the 3 seconds that they cast for.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It takes way too long for it to fully come out.
I mean, it would be fine, I guess. It would be a great spell if the stun would be, let's say, 2 seconds. But I guess it's
it might be too good then at level 3, because it's got a huge.
Yeah, might be. Yeah. I mean, I guess for air fights it would be totally overpowered if you would stun. Like it has a huge radius, so
yeah,
I don't know. But I think that like the next change, the next fixed hero, Naga Sea Witch, is like this change.
We didn't talk about the engineering upgrade, and this is a pretty significant nerf to. Because the clockwork goblins used to spawn very quickly, and you could drop a pocket factory at almost any expansion before, and it would kill them no matter what at level 3. I'm interested to see if you need to sit around and hit the expansion now because of the clockwork goblins spawning slower. I don't think it's too big of a deal in fight, but I think the harassing ability, this definitely lowers it. Not a whole lot, but a little bit.
Yeah, slightly. I mean, it's a bit of a change, like the water elementals. I'm not sure if you will really feel the difference. I mean, of course, if you use it in fight and you don't have a lot of units around it, you may feel the difference of like half a second. But it's apart from that, I don't think it will make too much of a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
While the mana shield buff of the Naga Sea Witch could turn out to be like one of the top 2 to 3 buffs in this entire patch.
Yeah,
because it's huge. And we sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think there's 2 ways of looking at it. There's normal maps where you can't buy items, and then there's maps where you can buy items. So maybe let's think about the maps that you can't buy items first on, like a sanctuary or something like that. You can still get mana items there.
Yep.
I mean, if you get a pendant of mana is what, plus 150, and then the bigger one is 250. So you're getting somewhere between 600 to 1,000 HP buff from level 3 at this point.
Yeah, and it's like this. I mean, of course, it will always come at a cost. Like either you trade in Fog Lightning or the Arrow, but it might definitely be worth it. I mean, I saw earlier today how Quest tested it with like this mana pendants, like 6 mana pendants, and she was unkillable almost. And taking into account that we talked earlier about Brilliance Aura and Archmage, and today human doesn't often, apart from Cumulus, sometimes humans in FFA don't pick Naga Sea Witch very often, but with Archmage and the mana generation each second, that could turn out to be like an HP regeneration of, like, converted from mana to HP, it could be a conversion of like 15 HP per second. So that would make her like the best tank you can get. And I think it would be like fair enough to to not go for Fork Lightning. Like Frozen Arrow is really fine, and if you can use her as a tank, it might definitely be useful. So I'm super curious to see how it works out, and if it's really as useful as we think it might be.
I think, especially in Hero Arena, or even just later in the game, like you said, I think I probably would go Forked Lightning still early game. But later on, when you're up against heroes with healing and staffs, 250 damage is not worth it versus having Mana Shield. Because you can spam, because you can't spam like Forked Lightning and Mana Shield. You don't want to have both of those unless you're level 10. But I look, it could end up being a big whiff and doesn't do anything to the meta, but I think it's a cool change.
Yeah, I think so too. And the next one is it's probably the biggest, as the Panna is more relevant, or the most relevant hero in FFA, I would say, above all races. The hero that's played most often. Every buff or nerf will affect FFA a lot, and this is not even a small nerf, so I would say it's a big one, and it has the potential to change, especially Night Elf versus Human and Night Elf versus Undead quite a lot. So
so without spoil, well, okay, so that's a big. I mean, if you think that Breath of Fire, I mean, it was broken for the longest time. This is a long time coming. I think I'm really willing to admit that this was too powerful, and honestly, I think that nerfing it as much as they did, I mean, 25-30%, that's a lot, but I think it was the right amount. They needed to do a lot to it. I'm glad to see that they didn't nerf Drunken Haze, though, because Drunken Haze to me is really the star of air versus air fights, because Drunken Haze, unlike this, does not have a unit cap. So if your opponent clumps up all of 24 hippogriffs or 24 gargoyles, you're going to hit all of them with Drunken Haze. You're not going to do damage to all of them with Breath of Fire, but if you're missing 60% of your attacks, you're still going to lose that fight. So I think you're right, though. This is huge for Human. This is huge for probably sieging. It's huge for a lot of things.
Yeah, so I think it's again one of these changes. I think it's super hard to really get a feeling for damage cap, because it only comes into effect usually when you have huge fights, and like you can't really. I would say if you compare it, you may not be able to. I mean, you will see a difference, but it's like super difficult to see the difference, maybe, if you don't see it side by side, because it's I guess it will matter a lot against Skarks, for instance, being Night Elf. But I'm super curious to see how it will turn out and how big of a difference it will be, because on one hand, like as you say, 20-30% or 15% in this case is a huge deal, but 1080 still is a good spell. Something with a damage cap of 1080 is still decent.
Exactly.
So we will see. And I guess there are other tools and fixes or buffs that may turn out to outweigh the Panda nerf. So we will see.
Well, let me ask this. What do you think you'll still be going Panda at when 1.3 drops?
Say again, sorry. So you
do you think that will you still be going Panda when?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's not much else you can pick if you want like AoE as Night Elf. Obviously, Alchemist got way better, but Alchemist will not help you. Like Acid Bomb is a great spell, but it's not comparable to Infight AoE as the Panda has, and it's not useful against tanks. So I mean, Panda will stay the only hero, or will stay a viable hero, I believe.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's cool that they made the big change.
Yeah.
I think a lot of FFAers are fairly new to, or So I remember when they added unit caps to begin with. So for example, 10 years ago, there was no unit cap on like Carrion Swarm, and then they moved it to 8, and then they moved it to 5. And Carrion Swarm went from the best skill in the game to it's still good, but you know, it's nowhere near what it used to be. But I guess it's really good now that it hits mechanical. So,
Yeah.
but you know, Carrion Swarm, when they added like the damage cap and all of that, it made a huge difference. So maybe this is a bigger change than we know, but I think Panda's still a tier 1 hero in FFA.
Yeah, definitely.
If they make more changes though, that could change.
Yeah, let's see.
All right, now I think that's all that covered all the hero panel. Yep. Okay, so I guess to top it all off, Panda knocked down a little bit, Demon Hunter knocked down a little bit, but they're still amazing. Archmage still. Archmage, I think, you know, we saw a lot of nerfs, but nerfs to heroes that were so good that they're still really good.
Yeah, I agree. So I think it will show a story if we like move through the human balance, if we move through the unit balance changes. So
yeah, absolutely. So first up, our good friends, the Flying Machine.
Yeah, and I really like this buff. So although they become a bit more costly, I think after 1.29, Flying Machines felt totally out of the meta in any game mode, because Dreadlord Carrion Swarm became so powerful and affected them all of a sudden. So I really like that they were buffed now, and I could believe they become a great tool in FFA again, at least more than they were in previous month. So
yeah,
I just
I guess the only thing that worries me is that they were, if you look at just dollars and cents, or I guess gold and lumber, they were already the most expensive unit in the game per food. And increasing, I mean, they got a huge buff here. I mean, the damage, now they can survive Carrion Swarm level 3. And the damage buff, oh my god, I think this is the percentage-wise the biggest percentage change up in the entire patch. So
not really, but the second biggest, I think.
Well, it's what is it? Average of 14.5 to 18.5 is.
You forgot the glaive throwers, but apart from that, I guess this is
units that are going to see play, I guess.
Yeah, but I like this change, but it has the potential, if a human can like micro well, and if he manages to get like 3-4 teams full of Flying Machines, it could smash everything else that's in the air. So
someone like Nox who goes Panda as well. You know, Panda, Haze, Breath of Fire, and these new Flying Machines, you don't even need 3 groups. You can probably do about 18 to 24 of them and mass Griffins. And wow, because you're right. I mean, Flying Machines, you need really good micro for them. But if you got it, I think look out.
Yeah, I hope they will become more, or we will see them more often, because I really hate like the human just tanks and towers. It's just boring. I mean, it's maybe not for the human player himself, but I guess it would be nice to see other units more. And also we rarely see any rifle caster pushes these days. Or the usual maps might also be a reason for that, because we don't have many small maps that we play currently. But yeah, I hope we see Copters more. All right. So I guess we need to move over over all these unit changes a bit more quickly, or we'll we'll be talking until like tomorrow, I think. All right, Militia, not a big change for FFA. I mean, because I think this is more to stop people from using Militia in solo fights that are not in their base. Militia is really for creeping and base defense. People used to be able to use Militia to. I guess the only thing this really affects in FFA is your ability to Militia scout. And also, like what just came into my mind, today, like in an 8-way with close positions on a map like Market, where the enemy is super close. These nasty tower rushes on Night Elves could become more deadly, even because, like, how long do your militias need to?
Oh, I didn't think of that.
So for like 5 second, like starting,
that gets your towers up 5 seconds sooner. Yeah.
Yeah, and that could be a huge deal. Actually, that could make it like totally undefendable. If like, yeah, it still is almost for most players if you place your Engine of War outside your main, but it may become totally undefendable.
And that's true for Sanctuary as well. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's so in a way that's almost like, but I don't think most players are going to look at that.
I guess it doesn't matter. Apart from that, it doesn't matter too much for FFA. But I mean,
how about this next one?
Yeah. The next one might matter more. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how often do you see mortar teams? I mean, you see them in Human Mirror. You sometimes see them human versus Night Elf if they're going ground. Like, I know that Soups likes to go mortar teams versus like Trunks and stuff like that.
I mean, some players like to add mortar teams, but so I guess I mean, it's a nerf. Not a small one, but yeah, let's see how it really affects FFA. I think it will be more relevant in other game modes.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Dispel Magic. 5 second cooldown. That's pretty big. I didn't even notice that. And the increased cast range is kind of nice because I feel like they used to get stuck behind all of the other units and they wouldn't be able to cast it fast enough.
Yeah.
So I like the cast range. The cooldown is interesting. I guess that's good because that means you can't just have one priest that dispels everything.
Exactly. And I think that especially against orcs, which are really spell reliant, that could be a huge nerf in FFA in human versus orc, because you can't just dispel everything with like 2 or 3 priests. So might be a big deal actually.
Yeah. It also means if you silence all but one priest, that one priest can't dispel everything in like 2 seconds. That's pretty cool. All right, here's the big change of the patch for free for all. If you ask me, this is the big meta shaker for me.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 camps of people. There's the human, and everybody else who is not a human player has been saying, you got to change siege tanks, and we finally got it. So 3 to 4. What do you think?
I think it's a great change. I mean, versus undeads will feel relieved even further after that Dreadlord Carrion Swarm can affect tanks, but this will make it even harder for humans to just go mass tanks. Again, it won't stop this harassment. Maybe a bit, because if a human just stays 50, goes mass expansions, and starts to harass your expos with a single tank, each expo, it will not be a huge difference. But if a human just goes all in with 100 supply of tanks, we will see significantly fewer tanks. So we will see, we may see like 3, 4, 5 tanks less, which is a huge deal. So I think it's totally totally understandable why a tank is not supposed to be a 3 supply unit. I still don't get why it gives such few experience points when killed. That I don't get it. But on the other hand, with most of the other changes, again, it's a nerf to human. So humans are really like in a tough spot since 1.29.
Yeah, no buffs at all, except for one stupid one, which we'll talk about in a couple of seconds. But I think the other big thing here is that humans had the best 80 food army in the game. With you could have like 6 siege tanks, maybe like 8 griffins, or a shit ton of breakers. This makes them have to really balance their army with their expansion a lot smarter. And it kind of puts them in a similar situation, or closer to a similar situation with Night Elf, where Night Elf, you might as well just be 100 at some point. So I think we're going to see a lot. I don't think that you stop using tanks at this point, because other than, like, for example, people have been fighting tanks with Breath of Fire since Panda came out. But that never stopped humans from going tanks. And that's why I don't think that they're going to stop going it because of Carrion Swarm, but this may make them stop and think a little bit more. But it's funny, you mentioned it, they give no experience. And now that they're taking up even more food, fighting against a human means you're going to get even less experience when you fight, because there are fewer units to kill. So I don't know.
I mean, he would probably get other units instead. So, oh no, sorry, you're right. He can't, because it's taken by tanks still. But no, I agree. I mean, I think it's a good change in general, but I would have liked to see tanks. I mean, I'm a Night Elf player, but still, even objectively, I would have liked to see tanks being nerfed more. Like giving more XP, other armor type, whatever. But of course, in return, human there needs to be something in return for humans. Otherwise, everyone will stop playing. So, and because I love human players that mix stuff, that add gyros and maybe knights even. So I think it's cool to see different human units, because human is very versatile in general, but not every human player likes to play units apart from tanks. So
yeah, I think it's a good change. I agree. Experience change would have been nice, but you know what? I'll take 3 to 4 any day.
Yeah.
Spellbreaker, Spellsteal. This is pretty cool to me.
Yeah.
Because this won't affect mass Spellbreaker players, but if you, like, for example, when I play human, I used to only go like 3 to 4 Spellbreakers, and that was still enough to steal all of the buffs.
Yeah.
Now you'll still get all the buffs, but it'll take a while.
Yeah, it's a nerf. I don't believe it will affect FFA too heavily, because it might. But usually when I see a lot of Spellbreakers on the field, it's rather late in the game, and there are not too many casters alive still. It's like the last resort unit by humans that you only get because they can't get sniped by undead.
Exactly.
But I don't have a feeling like for fights on the human side, so I don't know how much more difficult it will make stealing orc buffs, for instance. So
that's what I was going to say. Is the big change here is that it works a little bit. If an orc comes in pre-buffed, you could steal everything.
Yep.
Now, if they come in with both Bloodlust and Spirit Link, and you start stealing only the Spirit Link, the Spirit Link doesn't help the breakers survive anyway, and then that helps the orc really get to use their Bloodlust. But you said it earlier, how all of these changes play together, because humans will now be able to use the longer range Dispel Magic for priests. So maybe we'll see less reliance on Spellbreakers, more Dispel Magic on pre-buffed units.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean the next two changes are like not too meaningful for, like the first one at least, not too meaningful for FFA. Ivory Towers, I don't care. Orb of Fire was adjusted and now is a bit better than it was before, and human players in FFA bought it anyways in the past.
Yeah.
Although it was the worst orb in the game, or maybe the second worst. No, probably the worst, right?
No, definitely the worst.
Orb of Darkness has a purpose still, but again, I mean, it got slightly more expensive. The 5 additional damage might be nice, but I don't think we will feel a difference. We'll feel a difference by that. Maybe in some occasions, but the splash damage radius doesn't really matter, I think. But I think it's definitely fair that it deals 10 damage now.
If they went crazy and did the splash damage to like 200, then maybe it might matter, because especially like when you're hitting stuff in the air, probably hit like four or five hippos. Yeah, I think both of these changes, not that big of a difference.
Yeah.
At least in FFA.
Yeah. So, and I think on on these next few changes, like the defend doesn't matter too much in FFA.
Yep.
Flag cannons definitely do, but I'm not sure it matters too much for FFA, as humans will reach tier 3 anyways within a short amount of time. Fragmentation shards was nerfed slightly.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, it makes mortar, it's another nerf for mortar, but yeah, doesn't matter too much, I guess. And same for improved masonry.
Yeah, 25 gold here and there doesn't matter.
Okay.
I think these will make a difference in solo, but who cares about solo?
Yeah. And we're coming to Orc. Or we're getting
Orc, so the much maligned Orc race.
Yeah. And yay, bats all of a sudden become a feasible ground attack unit. And I saw it on Grubby's stream yesterday. He tested it, and like the ground or the damage to units looked quite different than it did in 1.29. So I don't think it matters too much in FFA, but still it's interesting. So I'm curious to see how much of a difference it makes, and if it's more feasible to keep bats in your army and maybe decide not to suicide them into air units. Like if you just kill one air unit, one enemy air unit, and you know that if it's worth to blow up 3 bats instead of keeping them alive maybe for a bit longer.
Yeah.
So interesting. And the Berserker got buffed. I believe in FFA this will only affect Dark Ranger build.
Yep.
Which can be very powerful already, and the Headhunters and Berserkers got buffed heavily, so potentially it could make this strategy much stronger.
It could, yeah.
So let's see. So and across the board, like also Shamans got a bit more, a bit better. They were already played in FFA. And were pretty good. The damage doesn't matter too much, but hit points could make it a slight difference. And yeah, I don't think 10 mana difference for Purge will make it more viable than it was before.
Yeah. Spirit Walker hotkey change. Woo!
I think that's like the top 1 change in this patch. That's the biggest.
Oh my god. Absolutely.
The next one is like huge, and also like one of the for other game modes, one of the top 3 changes, I believe, in this patch. For FFA again, although it's a huge change, and it may take Orc players to like learn, or they need to relearn how to like use hotkeys and how they build their what build order they're going to use. But apart from that, I guess most Orcs will get their Torrent totems anyways. On the other hand, it may require them to get a building they wouldn't have gotten. So I think it's a nerf for FFA, at least for mid to late mid game, where they want to have a Spirit Walker for early fights, for creeping maybe even, and they can't get their Spirit Walkers anymore, so they need to decide potentially if there's not enough lumber, which can be a big deal for Orc. So they need to decide, do I want to go for Shaman and Dogs, or do I want to go for Spirit Walkers? So could turn out to be quite impactful in FFA as well, but I'm not sure it does yet.
Yeah, I think the early mid game, you're right. screw orcs over. They already struggle with lumber to begin with. Even if they get a shredder, it's still tough.
Yep.
Now, because you used to be able to go. I think most orcs went double. What the hell is it called? The wizard shop, whatever it's called. Shaman Lounge, Voodoo Lounge. No, Shaman Lounge.
Voodoo Lounge is the shop, and my goodness, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so they would go 2 of those, and then tech up their 3 casters, and then mid game is when they would get Tauren Totem if they got it at all. You're right. Now it's going to force players who would never get it before to get it, and you have to decide between teching your 2 casters in your Shaman Lounge versus Tauren Totem. They don't get Tauren at tier 2 though. They have to wait until tier 3 for that.
Yeah, they have to wait.
Okay.
That will be overpowered. But I mean, it could have an upside as well if orcs need to produce late game. If orcs need to produce units quickly and they don't need a Tauren, they will be able to use their Spirit Lodge
Spirit Lodge. There we go.
At the same time as they build, as they train Spirit Walkers in their Tauren Totem, so they might get casters quicker. So that's maybe an advantage. But
yep.
Let's see. Scroll of Speed no longer to Zappers. I don't think orcs needed to use Scroll of Speeds on Zappers anyways in FFA most of the time.
Nope.
Another buff for Berserkers may become big. I think Burning Oil, the nerf. Sorry, no, that's not the nerf. Burning Oil is
Liquid
used
Fire.
Right, I confuse the name sometimes. Liquid Fire, that could become a huge deal and a huge relief because it's much more, or it takes much longer to kill buildings with Liquid Fire.
Yep.
So I think although bats are far stronger with the ground units right now, still not as good as Wyverns. This Liquid Fire nerf might be a huge relief for elf players in particular, since it takes way longer now to kill buildings.
Yeah.
So I personally like it, but I'm not sure it's again same as with the human race, as orc doesn't get much in return. I'm not sure if it's a fair change as is. With the Blade Master nerf and so on. I don't know.
Yeah. Next one's pretty big. I mean, it's not huge, but being able to get your fortified towers at tier 2, probably a bigger deal for solo, but
yeah,
I think it's somewhat meaningful in free for all too.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it? I mean, orcs will always rush to tier 3 anyways. And,
True.
So I don't think it matters for FFA. It's a huge buff for solo, which outweighs in other game modes. It outweighs the nerf of these other units. But I think as reinforced defenses this change cannot be seen as a huge buff. Neither the Spirit Walker change to the Tauren Totem. I think this is overall, these are there's no really good change for Orc and FFA, apart from Headhunters in this. So yeah. So again, I mean, Headhunters they got much better, but apart from that, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm with you. I don't think that going to see much play with Blade Master, but I mean, I actually think that they should, because they're just the reason orcs struggle so much is that Wyvern bats are just so cost inefficient. You usually can't win unless especially if you get teamed. But Headhunters, or Berserkers, really, if you use them well, they cost so little. They're only two foods. You can really mass them.
Yeah. And I mean, small changes on paper can. I don't know. I mean, today Headhunters really suck in FFA. I think they are no good units. Although they can they can work sometimes with the Dark Ranger. They can own sometimes, but in general they are not good. On paper they got buffed a lot, but I have no clue if this will make them good. So I guess we will have to see, and I hope a lot of orcs will try.
All right, let's look at Undead.
Yeah,
Undead. Everything got changed with Undead.
Yeah, everything got changed, and mostly it became better, I feel. And these acolyte, these acolytes are on ecstasy right now.
Yeah, they can run, they can survive.
Yeah, I mean they were not harassed too often in FFA. So again, I don't think it matters too much. This movement speed might, because you can escape with them, but in general, this is more of a deal in other modes. It may this increase movement speed if you use one of the acolytes you have in your mind and not just an idling one. It may increase the everything, because if you add up all the small movements that you would do with a single acolyte, it may add up to be a bigger deal than we might expect.
Yeah, I mean, it means running over to expand will be faster, building will be faster. I agree. The survivability not to in FFA where you're less likely to get harassed. I think in solo it matters a lot because I think the HP difference and that one change to armor, that means it'll probably take six attacks from like a Demon Hunter or a Blade Master instead of 5 before. So I think that matters, but otherwise, it's a change. Destroyer nerf, big deal in solo, I think. In FFA, usually you have your one destroyer just to dispel stuff. So,
or maybe 2 or 3, but you wouldn't get them for damage anyways. And I don't think this hit point difference makes too much of a difference. The next nerf might.
Frost Orb was so crazy in Hero Arena in FFA. That 10-second slow, wow.
Yeah,
it makes sense though. 10 seconds was too long. I think 3 might be a little bit too slow, but
I never guess. I knew it was overpowered and how it felt, but 10 seconds. It's the first time within these patch notes that I realized it was 10 seconds, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And 3 seconds is this is a huge nerf to Frost Breath, but it's still good, I guess, but I don't think it's overpowered anymore. It might be underpowered even now, but we will see, I guess. So, and that's the next one, Necromancer changes, is something I really hope. So when I started FFA last year, I witnessed some players going Necrowagon strategy a lot still. Even in I guess it was the season 25 final where Tailaxu went for it, but no one is playing Necrowagons anymore these days. So I hope to see it again, but I don't believe these changes will make that happen.
Yeah, the Unholy Frenzy should mean that we at least see the occasional Necromancer now.
Yeah.
I think it's 3 damage now is completely negated if they have level 3 aura, Unholy Aura. So I mean it's basically like a poor man's bloodlust. So that's pretty cool. But
it's still it's not good enough to take this road that you can't get away from. If you decide to go Necrowagon, it's do or die. And it's just just not a safe. It's a fun, but just not a safe strategy. So I think it would need to get some general changes, structural changes to become more relevant again.
Absolutely.
The next one, Obsidian Statue. I wonder why. I thought I found them quite squishy already in the past, so I wonder why they nerfed Obsidian Statue health points. I guess for FFA if you hit them with chimeras, they will die anyway. So
yeah,
doesn't matter too much.
Exactly.
Skeleton Warriors, yeah.
More buffs.
Yeah, Skeleton Warriors may change, as with the water elementals, for early creeping. It may ease some of these DK rod of how is it called? DK to Skelly creeps. May make it a bit easier. We don't know, but not a big deal. Undead building. So
all of these got buffed. Yeah.
So yeah, huge buff for Undead in general, building-wise and infrastructure-wise with the Acolyte buffs. And this will make Questbear way more powerful. Or not way more powerful, but more powerful than it already was. So cheaper early attack and the building duration. So I think adding all these buffs up, it could become like Questbear could become like total meta for every undead on almost every map. So interesting.
I like the little thing there with Haunted Goldmine reducing the blight radius. That's going to help them hide their expansions a little bit better now that less blight is being surrounded too. So that's pretty cool.
I agree. Yep. It's
all right. What do we got? Undead items. What do we got here?
Yeah, slight decreased armor, armor reduction of Orb of Corruption, which I think is fair. It was slightly overpowered again in FFA. I don't think it makes a huge difference, but in Hero Arena it might. But again, it's one of these changes that you would probably not, or that you, even as an undead player, I guess, would not realize in Hero Arena. So I don't know. Don't think it's a huge deal.
Sacrificial Skull is funny. That'll make it easier to do towers in solo. I don't think we ever see tower rushes in FFA though, so probably not that big of a deal.
It could make it way easier to tech some of the early expansions if you just go with DK and some ghouls, and it's a rather difficult expansion to take. So it could become a deal. But like I think it's a good change, or not a bad change in FFA at least. So we'll see. I think cannibalize, I guess not a huge deal in FFA. Devour Magic might be a big deal, but again, not a huge one in
because.
FFA.
The only thing that Devour Magic, well, so it's interesting because 160 now means that it takes 2 Devours to get skeleton warriors and skeleton mages. I mean, it took 2 to get mages, but it only took 1 for warriors before. That might, because it was a little bit too easy for undeads to counter other undeads with Devour Magic. But I think you're right. I don't think big of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the cooldown remains the same, I guess they will be all right. While the next change, I believe, I mean, it's a huge buff and maybe one of the biggest buffs in this patch. But I believe it could motivate undeads to go for an abomination, at least one, because especially against a player like Trunks. With a lot of squishy ground units.
Yeah.
I saw the damage yesterday on stream and it was crazy. The Dryades, I mean, it was a big deal already, maybe underestimated, but now the HP bars of Dryades are like shrinking within seconds. It's crazy. So I think it's something undeads should definitely take into consideration unless they go for pure air Garg armies. I think abominations become way better all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about it too is that even after, let's say that you're fighting a night elf ground or a human, and if the human doesn't have priests, even after the fight, they're still taking damage. So even if they win, they might not be able to push you afterwards because they're still taking damage.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious to see it,
Yeah.
to see it in FFA. I think the next two changes don't matter too much for FFA.
Exhumed corpses. I mean, the only time, occasionally you would see someone use Exhumed corpse when it was base race to harass with the resurrection that the Death Knight does. I don't think it's a big deal though.
Yeah. It's I guess mostly it's used for trolling, because in a base race, DK would rather keep his mana for coils than using it for his ultimate, unless you're really desperate. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Skeletal longevity combined with the increase. So basically, you used to get 55 seconds. Now you get 75 seconds.
I mean, this all I guess it's something we would have to talk about again if Necrowagons become meta at one point, which it probably will never be again. So once that happens, it's definitely we see a lot of changes that would buff that strategy.
Yeah.
At the moment, I don't think it matters too much.
No.
While the upcoming Night Elf changes might do actually matter quite a lot. Archer hit points, something that archers were pretty cost efficient already, the most cost efficient unit in the game, and this I get this may matter a bit in Zolo.
This prevents level 2 coil and level 2 Stormbolt from one-hitting them now.
Yeah.
Or I guess this might actually even stop level 3. Have that.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
And I mean, there are not many players who use archers efficiently and late game in FFA, but a player like Trunks does, and it make his army way more powerful in the future. So we will see.
It just helps with like surviving AoE stuff like that too.
Exactly. And the next one, Chimera's splash. Again, it's one of these changes that looks quite huge, and the splash was an important part about like the Chimera attack. So reducing this could be quite a big deal. I can't predict how much worse it will feel in reality, because they still deal a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I guess it will help humans mostly, because against it will help humans and orcs most, because against all other races you will primarily use them against single heroes or against buildings, where it doesn't matter. So you
know where it gets interesting though. So talking about Necrowagon, you see mortars have been really nerfed, and now you're seeing the splash damage of Chimeras really nerfed. And then the skeletons will survive better against Devour Magic. And Necrowagon was already pretty strong against Night Elf. The only thing that I think it would be weak against at this point is probably Orc.
Yeah. And also against Necrowagon, I hope we see it more. So I hope some players who like to tinker around with strategies anyways will try Necrowagon again or more. Also, what I realized today when watching a stream, that a Wisp Dispel doesn't seem to kill the skeletons anymore. So I'm not entirely sure if I saw that correctly, and if it changed, but maybe a big deal if you look at
So Wisps do 225 in terms of summon damage. So they will still kill the regular skeletons, but they will no longer, I think, kill the where are they? because I think that the mages are now at 230 HP, so they should. Oh, they'll actually survive even more. Yeah. So yeah.
Yep.
Plus, I mean, what's interesting is having to use your wisps isn't even a good option anyway. That kind of sucks to have to sacrifice your wisps.
Yeah.
So, all right. Bear form. Not a big deal for.
Not a big deal for FFA.
Yeah.
Druid of the Talon. It makes a difference. I mean, 25 gold. And like it's I don't think it's a game changer. But Druid of the Talons, which some players like to play or like to add, become less viable. I think Fairy Fire still lasts a long time, so I don't think this 20-second difference matters too much. But they got nerfed.
Yeah, I think it's a fair nerf.
Yeah.
Nerf to abolish magic. I think this is fair because dryads just do everything a little too well. They slow you down. They abolish. So this is a good change, but they're still obviously very powerful.
And I wonder this next one. It doesn't mean so it wasn't possible to dispel them in the past with abolish magic, and now you can.
Oh no! So these are the so they changed abolish magic game wide. So
I see. Yeah. I was about to say, okay, that wouldn't have made sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I guess where this is interesting is like the Cobalt Man.
Yeah.
Water elemental. They now the level 1 water elemental will survive 3 abolish magics now.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
Yep. I think so. And now, like the biggest buff.
I know. You know, this makes me sad because glaive throwers were always pretty good against tanks. That was like the best kept secret. But now that tanks cost 4, we're probably going to see fewer tanks, which means that this change really doesn't matter too much for humans.
But I think it's such a huge buff. It was already good. I tend to forget, and I didn't have an Engine of War in some cases in the late game. But parking glaive throwers in the back of your main, if you were at risk to be mass TP'd with tanks, was always viable. And with this damage and the nerf of the Panda Breath, it might become really necessary to do that. And I think I need to do it more often myself, and I hope to see more glaive throwers because it's cool to see all kind of units, and FFA is the game mode with the most versatility of units in general. So I like to see it.
Yeah. This next one is I think this is pretty cool. I mean, it's obviously a bigger deal for solo. I don't know if I would start going Huntresses now, but because you said it before, I mean, archers are just way too cost effective. But
I think one Huntress definitely makes sense with the Sentinel upgrade because I mean, it depends. It might be a nice scout to have in your enemy main, and maybe good for creeping. To have one hunt. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's worth to get your Huntress Hall earlier just to get a Huntress, but I don't know. Maybe we will see more Sentinel Scouts in FFA.
Mountain Giant, this is cool. I love this.
Me too, yeah. Again, may become way more viable to get a Mountain Giant. Still 6 supply is quite a lot, but the gold nerf, if I would need to decide, if I needed to decide in the past in some situations, if I get a Chimera for 330 or a Mountain Giant in 425, I would in most cases go for the Chimera, because when I had time to think about like getting this unit or that unit, I usually had not like 20k gold left. So these 100 different, this gold difference may be a big deal. So, so I think it's a good change. I also hope to see more Mountain Giants, maybe even more than 1 or 2. Maybe we will see like mass Mountain Giants. I would love to see that.
You might, yeah. I mean, the thing, building just one now almost is still, you still have to get both upgrades for them to really make them worthwhile. And so it's like the first one is basically 550 gold because you figure you need both upgrades. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking the same thing. Maybe instead of going 9 chimeras, I'll go 8 in a mountain giant now, or 5 chimeras in a mountain giant.
Yeah. So let's see. The next one, Hippogriff. Don't think it matters too much. I mean, it may accelerate Trunks pushes a bit more, but there are not many players who play Hippogriff riders these days, so don't think it matters too much. They are a bit stronger now in general.
Yeah.
I guess only the riders, not the hippos themselves, I guess so.
Right. I like this though because this shows that that Blizzard is so many more units viable in solo. I agree though, not a meaningful change for free for all.
Yeah. Well, the next
one, this makes me so sad. It makes me so sad.
Yeah. So I mean, it's still good for creeping, and you don't really care about like the damage too much usually, but for like as an FFA, you often try to creep as you're rarely at risk to be rushed early or harassed. You try to creep like at the limit, and this may lower the limit of AOW creeping quite a bit. Like on market, creeping the natural expansion with the Ancient of War alone. So it may be quite a nerf for FFA. And also for like to use Ancient of Wars for against
like
tanks.
Defensively.
Yeah. Against tanks. 10%.
Or even against spellbreakers. They used to tear through spellbreakers. I mean, they'll still do. Yeah. They won't survive nearly as long, and they won't kill nearly as fast. So.
Yeah, so I guess it's all right, and we will see other buffs for Night Elf, but this one is definitely a huge nerf in general.
Yeah.
So this is we already discussed the next one. Ancient Protectors, way more powerful. Still one of these changes, I have no clue. Today you don't really have a need to build Ancient Protectors unless you're really super rich and you are not afraid to get teamed because you have a base full of APs, but they are way more powerful now. So I don't know. Let's see.
I mean, they're pretty. Yeah. The only time I ever like Ancient Protectors, I like to build like 3 or 4 of them against undead because they do enough damage against gargoyles that it's okay. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why if I can charm a peasant and build level 1 towers or Ancient Protectors, I'll always build level 1 tower.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, we will have to see how much of an effect they still have against bats with a weakened liquid fire. Is it liquid fire? So,
sure.
Yeah, liquid fire. Maybe it totally blocks all bat harassment if you place like 2. In the past, if you had 2 APs at your expansion, it made bat harassment a lot more difficult already. But maybe 1 could be enough now. I don't know. I rarely get them, but maybe it makes a difference. So we'll see. The next one is huge for FFA in particular, I guess, where some players get a lot of Moonwelts just for defensive purposes. And this, so at nighttime, this could make Night Elves a lot stronger. So
yeah, so I had to look up Wellspring.
Yep.
Because Wellspring increases the regeneration by 52%. So if I do some quick math here, 1.5 times 1.
But doesn't Wellspring just increase the capacity, which does not increase?
No, it increases. Yeah, it increases speed too. So
right.
At night you're looking at 2.28 mana per second versus.
This would be only without Wellspring then, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it means that you're definitely going to fill up your Moonwells at night now with Wellspring, but even without it, Wellspring you had to have before. Now it's a nice to have. Like you don't have to rush for Wellspring. So I think it helps. It helps at all stages of the game, basically.
I'm not sure if I agree. I think Wellspring still is super necessary because you need like Moonwells. You empty Moonwells super quickly without Wellspring. So Wellspring is still super amazing upgrade. But I think this will make it way easier to defend early and also to creep or to heal up after creeping. Because I mean, usually in the first night, when the first night begins, you start to take, or you need to take some damage with the heroes as Night Elf, and you don't have as many Moonwells to heal them up again. So I think this could make it way easier to creep quicker before reaching tier 2.
Yeah. It also means it's a slight buff to stones because Moonstone, since it's you only have 20 seconds of night, you're getting a little bit extra.
Yep.
So that's pretty good.
The next one also a huge change in general, structural change.
Yeah.
And it does not. I don't think it makes much of a difference for FFA usually, unless we will see different strategies in the future that we do not know yet. Because we may see Dryad Chimera small, which I don't believe yet, but it has interesting potential, I think.
I mean, I love to rush to 100 food, and I can tell you that it doesn't make too big of a difference because you won't, since Chimera Roosts are so lumber heavy, I think it's 225.
Yeah.
You probably won't have the lumber to start building them at tier 2 anyway.
Yeah.
Now, is this saying then that chimeras are unlocked?
So say again.
So can you start building chimeras at tier 2 then?
No, and it will still be a tier 3 building.
Okay, so you can build the building. So I really
no you can build it. You can only build it if once you reach tier 3, but you don't need the Engine of Wind.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's helpful for. I don't know.
I guess it's helpful either if people come up with new strategies, or if Necro Wagons will become relevant again, as against Necro Wagons, chimeras are like all you need, like all you really need, and like these 20-30 seconds can make a big difference against early Necro Wagon pushes, and this may make it easier for you to get enough to have the lumber available to get enough roosts, which you may not have when you need the Engine of Wind doing your attack. So I don't know, but I don't think it matters too much.
I don't know. I mean, I think that I don't know. The more I think about it, I think that it's going to be really hard to counter Necro Wagon with Night Elf, because if they have a couple of fiends in there, your chimeras can't even reach anything, and the smaller splash radius is just going to really slow down the ability to kill the skeletons.
I agree.
TBL game 3 starts in what, 53 minutes?
Yes, and we have one last buff, but I guess that's not really a big deal for FFA. The 2 points of speed.
This is so good. Yeah, this is so good for solo. It was so lame before that, especially on like Echo Isles and other maps that one merchant. It was basically a race to get the boots of speed, and whoever got it won the first time.
I learned today that it still may have a 10 to 20 second cooldown. But still, it's an improvement. I see it as well. And as you just said, since the second TBR match of today, which will be an 8-way pre-team, never seen, and I'm super excited. We'll start at 50 minutes, and we are talking for a few hours now. I guess it's fair to take a short break. And
yeah, I just want to make sure I understand how this pre-team. Yeah. So I said to what's his name, Mass Tanks. So all it is basically is it's a 2-on-2 on 2-on-2, but you don't have allied chat. You don't have allied, like, you can damage your teammate basically, right?
You could, and you don't. I think vision will play a big role.
No, and you're not spawning next to them necessarily.
Exactly. So spawn locations and vision.
Yeah.
mean, you can. That's why I'm super curious to see what teams come up with, what fancy strategies, and apparently it will always be, or spawn positions will always be an issue or very impactful.
Yep.
But still, it's yeah. I see a lot of potential outcomes. So I'm super curious to see how it works out.
Love Warcraft 3 is asking, who will